You know, when we hear the word mission, and if you've been with us very much over the last few months or a couple of years, you've heard the word mission a whole lot up here. But when we hear the word mission, we tend to think of a missions trip. We think of somewhere that we're going or something that we're raising money for. But you know, the biblical idea behind mission is actually something we're called to live right where God has placed us. Think about it. You've been placed in this specific time, at this specific geography, and with these specific giftings to fulfill a missional purpose that only you can fulfill. And the cool thing is, we're not called to live that mission on our own as individuals. We're called to do it as a family. You know, here at FCC, one of our everyday values that Marcus shared with us this past spring is to live as that biblical family that God has called us to live as. The one that we've seen modeled in the early church. But how do we do this practically? How do we do it practically in the home and the everyday stuff of life? I mean, you know how it is, all the busy schedules that we have with soccer practices and overtime, this chaos that we now know as life. How do we fulfill that mission that God has given us, and how do we do it as a church family? Now, in the bulletin, you'll see there on the little message outline page, you're going to see some of the ways that we've seen family try to act out or live out the idea of mission. So many families begin to look at this life on mission thing. They start to, decide, okay, so how are we actually going to do this? And one of the ways that we see a lot of families try to work this out is they have this concept that it's family or mission. They look at their already busy schedule and they say, well, how are we supposed to do this mission thing and do family? So really it comes down to constant choices. Well, we can have family time, or we can do all this God stuff that Bob and Marcus keep talking about. Another way that we see families try to live this out is family and mission. And this becomes a huge balancing act. Family and mission. We take our calendars, we see all the schedule that we've already got plotted in there, and we see those brief little blank spaces, those cracks and crevices in our schedule, and we decide, okay, that's where we're going to shoehorn the God stuff in. Because Bob and Marcus keep saying we got to do this mission thing. And so it becomes this balancing act of, we're going to do family and mission, and you and I both know how that typically ends up. It ends up in frustration and usually burnout. That also goes along with the next one, family as mission. Family as mission is a little bit closer to the center of the target there, but it's this idea that, okay, well, we're gonna live out our family, and we're gonna do this mission stuff whenever that sort of fits in as we do our normal family stuff. And that's a little bit more towards what God calls us to, but even then it becomes an overworked, overburdened calendar that again ends up mainly in burnout. This morning we want to take a few minutes and focus in on the idea of being a family on mission. What does that look like? What does it look like to be a family that is moving in the same direction with the same purpose and the same mission, the mission that God has given us? Now, you've probably already noticed that the stage looks prettier than it normally does. Well, they didn't laugh. The stage looks prettier than usually when Marcus or I are up here. I'm excited this morning. This is the first time we've ever been able to do this. I'm excited to have my beautiful wife up here with me, because as we started talking a few months ago for this particular Sunday in talking about how do we get across this idea of family on mission, what does that look like? We really decided that the best way to do this was more of a conversation. And so we want to invite you in to a conversation this morning about being a family together on mission. And listen, most of you all know us, and if you don't, you need to know, listen, we're not perfect. We don't have all this down. This isn't, the Tankersley household isn't just this perfect mission clock that's working 24/7 all the time. We get burnout. We look at each other on the couch every now and then and go, do we really have to do this mission thing tonight? It's constant that way. But we do feel like that we've sort of tripped across a few things that God has led us to and nudged us towards in the last couple of years that we want to share with our FCC family this morning. So I hope that you will welcome Sharon up here with me. We're going to talk about a few different things of how we can look at being a family together on mission. And the first thing that we want to do is where it really starts. It's the idea that it is important to see this as a team effort. It's a team thing. Now, a lot of us know each other pretty well, but to be honest with you, I don't know what family looks like to you. Family to you, the idea of family and the family specifically in your household may look like that stereotypical nuclear family, husband and wife, 2.5 or 2.85, whatever the ratio is nowadays, of kids and a dog or whatever. I don't know. That may be what family is to you. Family to you may be what family it is for us. It's just the two of us and a very, very mischievous cat. I don't know. That may be what family is. Maybe family is you and your spouse retired and it's just the two of you. Maybe it's an empty nest nowadays. Maybe you find yourself as a single parent and you're trying to live out this mission thing and juggle the kids all by yourself, and Bob and Marcus keep talking about more and more stuff to do and you just don't know where it all fits. Maybe you find yourself spiritually single. Maybe you do have a spouse at home who is not a believer like you, or maybe has decided that this Jesus thing, this God mission thing, isn't really for them. Maybe that's what the reality of family is for you. And the fact is, maybe the idea of family is just too flat painful to think about. Maybe to you, family is a bad word. I don't know where you are in this idea, this reality of family. I don't know how your household works. But it's important to begin with the idea that mission is a team sport. And our families work together. We're designed to do that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad, I don't know about you all, but I'm glad that God's idea for how this whole mission, life on mission thing was going to work was to do it together as a team. Whatever that looks like, as Bob said, we're a team, but we're also a team. And I'm really glad, because if I had the idea that I had to go out there in the world and be on mission all by myself, I would fail. So I wouldn't even try. I'd stay right here, because there's a lot of things that I'm not good at. And so it takes all of us together. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and we complement one another and balance each other out. And so collectively, we're much stronger. Some examples that I thought about when Bob and I were talking about that team thing and complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses, just to kind of make it relevant. One of the things that about us is that Bob has never been very good at remembering people's names. He fakes it really well, but if you tested him in here this morning, he probably would fail. So I happen to be able to be good at remembering people's names. And so early in our marriage together, we learned this trick. And so anytime we're in social situations, I'm almost always nearby whispering in his ear so that he can fake it, people's names. So-and-so is related to so-and-so. Their kids, go to that program across the way. I know all of the details of people's lives, and I help balance him so that he can interact and learn people and get to know people in a more complete way. Meanwhile, one of the things about me is that I am not very patient with people. I know that may be a big surprise for some of you that know me pretty well in here, but I get my feelings hurt really easily, and I tend to react quickly to situations interpersonally with people. Bob is so patient, and he's often the one to remind me, slow down, don't react yet, think it through. They probably had something completely different in mind, and it just feels this way right now. And I'm so glad that he's there helping balance that out in me. And some of you in here, when we spend time together, you remind me and you balance me and you make me stronger and help me grow into more of a whole and complete package, because you're strong at things that I'm not, and vice versa. So again, the team thing is just really important as we go out into the world and represent Christ.
Yeah, texting has been single greatest invention in our life, because Sharon can be across the room and text me someone's name, helps me out. What she said is exactly right. There's a balance to this mission thing. God's design is that we do this together. It's a balance. From the very beginning, God saw Adam and he saw that he wasn't good alone. It's not because he is a guy and he was going to get himself into trouble. God knew from the beginning that we are designed to work in community. And that community looks a lot of different ways. In fact, one of the big things that we've even learned through this idea of living on mission together in the home has really come from a standpoint of with women's roles, especially within the church. Both Sharon and I come from a faith background in which men's and women's roles were very defined within the church, and there wasn't a whole lot of room for women. There wasn't a whole lot of room for their gifts that they had. And one of I think the blessings of living on mission together is I get to watch my wife use the gifts that God has given her through that living together. That's a blessing to do that. And the reality is one of our primary identities, no matter whether you're male or female, one of our primary identities given to us by God is that of missionary. We've talked about this. Again, this goes back to our everyday values. We are designed to be missionaries, all of us. This isn't just a clergy thing. This isn't just a pastor thing. This is all of us. We've all been sent by God. And if you look at Scripture, God never sends people individually. He always sends them as a team. And so that family is the primary way that we do that. In fact, that leads us to our second role, or our second idea. The second thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit was this idea that we need to remember, we challenge you to remember that the primary role of the family, no matter what it looks like in your household, the primary role of the family is to show and tell His story. It's not our story. It's God's story. We are designed to tell the story of God. Whatever that looks like for you, that's our primary role. So we were talking this week, what are some of the benefits that you see in doing that together within our family?
Well, like I said a few minutes ago, it would scare me to death if I thought I had to go out there in the world and represent Christ and disciple out in the community with people that I don't know. And so one of the things that I think is great about this idea of doing this with each other in our homes and in our church family is that it's a safe place to get some practice. It's kind of a practice field. And so, like Bob said, it's a team sport. Well, we get to practice a lot together. And so with the grace that is extended between us in these trusting relationships that we've already established, I can try out some of the principles that God is teaching me through Scripture and through talking to each other about how loving like He would love out in the world should look. And I'm not just talking about, being nice. I can practice Christ's love in my home, and it's not just talking about being nice. I'm nice to Bob when I feel like it. I try to be nice to Bob, but what I try even more to do is to practice this crazy, reckless, selfless, dying to self-love that Christ calls all of us to. I don't get it right most of the time, but at least this is a safe place. Among you all is a safe place for me to practice before I go out there in the world and get it wrong where it really counts, where it really could hurt somebody. And so I just like the idea of a safe place to practice together.
Yeah, and I think we would all agree to the fact that family is messy. Again, no matter how it's defined and how it's, whatever that picture looks like for you and your household, I think we'd all agree that family is messy. But the reality is that the nuclear family, what we think of as the typical family, the typical household, the nuclear family is basically a microcosm for what the larger church family is supposed to look like. I mean, the idea of family permeates Scripture. And even in the book of Acts, as we see the early church begin, the idea of family most often translated in English into the word household. You talk about so-and-so's household or so-and-so's, this woman or this man's household became on mission basically for God. the the nuclear family is a microcosm for what we think of as the larger church family. And so it is a safe space. It's a proving ground. It's a practice field for us to live this mission thing together. That's why this idea of missional communities, you've started hearing us talk more and more about missional communities, or MCs. And we're going to open that up. We're going to have our pilot groups to where people can join in on that here in just a few weeks, beginning in September. You're going to start hearing more about that. But that's why the idea of MCs are so important. I want you to think of an MC not just as one more church activity you've got to be a part of, or a small group, or some extra Bible study. The MC that we're a part of, that's been together for nearly 2 years, that's our extended family. I mean, they literally are our extended family. We love each other like family. And some members come and go just like our earthly typical family. One of the main authors in the missional movement, Mike Breen, he describes MCs as being a family of faith that integrates discipleship into the everyday fabric of life. I mean, that's exactly how we should see our family. Discipleship doesn't begin and end once you walk into this white building. Discipleship is an everyday type of a thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I've told Sharon numerous times, I've told my MC this numerous times. I came up on a 2-year anniversary at Starbucks a week or so ago. And I have told them numerous times that I could never have lasted that long without the love and the support and the prayer and the encouragement of my missional community, of that family. It's too exhausting physically and mentally of a job. I've shared with you all know why I'm there. I'm there to be Christ in a group, in the midst of a group of people who don't have a lot of Jesus in their lives. And it's too exhausting to do that on my own, but I have my team behind me. It's very much a team thing. Now, Sharon, you had a great analogy of how this sort of echoes out, or how this expands out.
We were talking about this practice field idea and the fact that we get to live life together, all of us here, and the impact that collectively we can have on this community, so much more than what I could do by myself. And it just reminded me of ripples on a pond. You throw a stone in a pond, and there's ripples that carry out. And sometimes the farther away from the initial impact, the bigger and broader it is. But the reach is certainly much farther than just that little stone by itself. And so the loving patterns and practices that we set up in our homes that spill over onto each other and we share with one another here, it's just kind of like, I like to think of it as that ripples on the pond, and it's going to eventually just splash out and quench the dry and thirsty souls of the people out in this community that don't know Christ. And so I just really like that idea of what we can do collectively, just really taking and gaining momentum in impacting this community in such a bigger way than just one of us.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example of that. Here in just a few days, Sharon and I are going to host a cookout for, I'll call them my Starbucks family, all the people that I work with and their families at Starbucks. And a big part of that cookout is the fact that our MC, our missional community, is going to be out there. They're going to give up their Sunday night. They're going to give up, they're going to hover over a hot grill in the middle of July. And they're going to give their time and energy to love on a group of people that they basically have little connection with outside of the fact that I'm involved in those people's lives. And so the thing that we're looking for, my prayer is that my Starbucks family will come, and they're going to be there in the midst of a group of people, and they're going to be like, why would these people give up Sunday night to cook me dinner? And that only is going to open the door to the fact that, hey, my MC, my extended family loves on me, and they want to love on you all just the way they love on me, and offer you just the blessing of Jesus that night. That's a way that if it was just left up to me or just left up to the two of us, that could never happen. It would be really difficult. And so that's a great way of how that reaches out, that practice field reaches out into the community beyond. Now, so far this morning, this has been primarily sort of about the why, but we started out talking about the how. How do we do this as a family? How do we, we asked that question, how do we do this whole mission thing as a family? And so we want to switch gears here and talk a little bit about more the practical side of things. And see, the fact is, and I mentioned this earlier, the fact is, this takes a reorienting or a redefining of the idea of mission and getting beyond Sunday. You've heard us talk a lot about we've got to get beyond Sunday. And we're not trying to get rid of Sunday morning like worship services and Sunday school at all. Don't ever hear us say that. Sunday is essential. What we're doing right now is a family gathering. It's essential. But I think we would all agree that it's not sufficient to live out the mission of Christ. And so we've got to get beyond these walls. And so we've got to understand that mission happens in the everyday stuff of life. As a family, more discipleship goes on around your dinner table or in the car as you drive back and forth to school or Kroger or Starbucks or wherever you're going. More discipleship happens in those areas than will ever happen in Sunday school. It's just a fact of life. We spend so much more time together as a family. And so if we can reorient our view that everyday stuff of life is the exact mission field that Christ has called us to, that gives us a whole new picture. Now, earlier this morning, Sharon talked about how the family is like a practice field. And I think that's exactly right. Those times in the car, those times around the dinner table, the way your children see, when your children see the way you treat other people in the community, they're learning, they're being discipled. You're discipling them right then and there. It's like a dress rehearsal for how we love the world at large. And parents, if you haven't already grasped this, you need to grasp this today. Parents, your children will learn more about the love of God from how you and your spouse treat each other than they will in any Sunday school class. Your children will learn more about the love of God in how you and your spouse operate and love on each other and talk to each other and forgive each other within your household than they will learn in a lifetime of Sunday school. And so if we as a people, as we the family of God, if we're too hesitant or too timid to talk about Jesus amongst our own family members, then how are we ever going to talk about Him to the unbelieving world? I mean, think about that. If we're too timid to do it around our dinner table, how will we ever do it to the people who need it out in an unbelieving world? So, what are some practical steps? If you've got your bulletin with you, we've listed a few. Obviously, this isn't a comprehensive list, but these are a few to begin with. And number one, the number one thing is to start where you are. Start today. Start this afternoon. Decide that you are going to begin living as a family on mission. Don't wait to hear another sermon series. Don't wait to read a book on this or to take some sort of class on how to be a family on mission. All those things are great, but begin today. Start today. Think about it for a second. Think about the last time you had a conversation in your family, as a family, about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Or when's the last time as a family you had a conversation about what it means to be a family on mission? Again, whatever that looks like in your household. When's the last time you had that conversation? And if it's been a while or if it's been never, then plan a time soon. Get out your calendars, figure out a time, maybe even do it before the end of the day today. Share your strengths and weaknesses with each other. Be honest. Parents, be honest with your children. Sometimes I'm really scared about sharing Jesus or about talking about that Jesus loves me. I'm scared about talking about that with, the guys in the golf club or the people that I work with. Be honest with each other. That's how we learn to live on mission together.
So this next suggestion, we like to think about taking a look at your family's existing rhythms. What are the rituals, weekly, monthly, yearly, the traditions and the patterns of your household? and talk together about what those look like, and try and think about what it would be if you tried to start being a little bit more intentional about including people into those things that already exist. You know they're going to happen. You don't have to plan them. It's not something extra, but you can invite someone extra to the table, so to speak. So talk about that. And then go ahead and take it a step further. Be very practical and immediate. Pick one family rhythm this week that you know is going to happen. If you always have tacos around the dinner table on Tuesday nights together, then who could you invite? Is there a neighbor lady that's alone and maybe needs some encouragement? Is there someone in this room that you've been hoping to get to know a little bit better? Just try and think of a way to fit somebody else into your regular routine and talk about that together, and plan to be proactive. An example, I already said tacos because my stomach's growling, so I'll just go ahead and roll with it. Y'all, many of you know that if you follow us any given Sunday after the second service is over, you will find us eating lunch tacos at El Tapatio down the road.
Kindles too.
Yes, and so that's our place, and it started generally because we love tacos and we like that particular location, but we've gotten to know the staff there, and the people that own the place have become friends, and so we've formed a relationship, and it's fun to go there every week. And when we're not there on Sunday, we get fussed at the next time we're there. Where were you and what's going on? And usually they know it's because we're traveling, because we are almost always there. The other really cool thing about that, going back to this whole life on mission thing, is that Bob and I know that's a routine. We don't even have to check in with each other, because if I happen to stumble across somebody this morning that I know needs some extra encouragement or attention, I have permission to include them, to come go to lunch with us, because I know we're going, and so it's just an established thing. And that makes it really easy to be inclusional and to just incorporate this whole mission life idea into something you're already doing.
Yeah, and I hope that you hear, as much as anything, I hope that you hear what we're saying. We're not talking about a bunch of additional stuff. We're not talking about adding a bunch of activities and events to your calendar. What we're talking about is looking at your calendar and seeing what you're already doing and becoming more missionally intentional. Being more intentional. So think intentional, not additional. Now, I've got one bonus suggestion there for you. You know, as Sharon said, my stomach's rumbling too. Most of us, I know this crowd. Most of us are headed out of here in a few minutes to go find something to eat. We're going, maybe it's your favorite lunch spot here. Maybe you're going home and it's your family around the dinner table. Wherever it is, your bonus next step is this. Talk on the way to your favorite lunch spot about how your family can bless the workers who serve your meal. And be creative. Maybe you do like a friend of mine who talks about gospel tipping. That's his big thing. Gospel tipping, regardless of whether or not the people deserve it. They tip more above and beyond because they're showing the love of Christ. Do you think Jesus may tip us a little bit more in life than I actually deserve, that I actually serve Him? Yeah, that's exactly the mentality. How can your family bless those who are serving them? If you may not know this, but the number one hated shift in food service is Sunday lunch. Out of all the shifts during the week in food service, the number one most hated shift is Sunday lunch, because we all run out of church on Sunday, and we're all dressed up in our Sunday best, and we're all hangry because Bob and Marcus preached too long that morning, and we want our food and we want it now. And we don't tip much, and we don't have any eye contact with those people who serve us, and we're gruff with them because we're hungry and we want it. I work with a group of people who, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they don't have a whole lot of Jesus in their life. And I got to be honest with you, we have a group that we know comes from a church on a very regular basis. Not any of this group. But my Starbucks family knows that this particular group are Christians, and they know that they're coming from church, and they almost always treat my Starbucks family horribly. And so here again, I have an example. Here I am, I'm trying to show the love of Christ, and yet my Starbucks family gets shown every single week by people who say they're Christians about, how awful we can be to each other. Don't be that group. Don't be that people. Let's bless the people who serve us. That's a simple way. Remember, especially parents, the kids are watching you be Jesus to the people around you. And so that's an easy way of doing it. Again, our prayer is not that, this is another one of those sermons that Bob is giving you a bunch, or Sharon's giving you a bunch of extra stuff to do. I hope more than anything, you've gotten encouragement to say, hey, yeah, my schedule is busy. But you mean that God has planted me at, my desk cubicle during the week? Yeah. You mean God plants me at Kroger, when I go every 2.5 days, during the week? And I know y'all do because I see you there, You mean God plants me in whatever activity that you're part of? Yes. God has planted us there. Whatever your context is, it is your missionary context. So don't think of it as a bunch of additional stuff. Let's be intentional. Let's see ourselves as a team, and let's go out there and serve Christ together. Our prayer is that you will be encouraged to be a family on mission. And if you are in your household and you're doing it by yourself and you feel alone, then you talk to one of us, because life is better together. That's the way God's designed it, and we want you to be part of our family on mission. Let's pray. Our Father God, we thank you. Help us to be a family on mission. Help us to be your family. And we pray these things in your Son's name. Amen.